Hello, Anne. Today we are discussing your book, Identifying Consciousness, an inspired profile of the source of everything, and your theory of extension. The book is now available on Amazon. Welcome. What is your background and why is this book important?
As a philosopher, I'm presenting in my book a logical theory about consciousness that may work for everybody, as it bridges science and philosophy in an entirely new concept.
So the existence of consciousness is universally accepted, but until recently, its identity has been a philosophical guessing game, and science continues to primarily focus on matter and energy.
Historically, it was philosophers who struggled with consciousness, but currently there's strong competition and hot scientific debate about the understanding of what consciousness is. There's much scientific research being done to attempt to explain how the brain creates thought. Cognitive scientists, neurophysiologists, and the science of quantum mechanics are considered to be the most relevant avenues of study currently, yet proof and identity remain elusive. I believe that consciousness is a foundational, universal thinking element in its own right, independent from all else. It's the embodiment of thought itself and has been integral with matter and energy from the beginning of the universe. It can be identified, studied, and defined the same as matter and energy. Considering consciousness to be an element capable of thought will present a paradigm thought shift from what we consider consciousness to be presently, a vague force that has something to do with the brain function. To date, a confusing soup of titles has been tagged onto it: a photon, epiphenomenon, the quantum mind, awareness, the implied link, soul, essence, etc.
Right.
They're all the element of consciousness demonstrating itself. One of my goals is to instill in both science and philosophy a sense of urgency to specifically identify consciousness itself before moving on.
Yeah. Rigid belief systems interfere with progressive thinking on both sides. Have we painted ourselves into a corner?
As long as we remain insistent that philosophically consciousness is separate from ourselves, or that matter and energy alone can create thought, we will remain in that struggle. The nature of the foundational thinking component of the universe has been revealing itself to us from the very beginning. By attributing its behavior and obvious characteristics to ourselves, holding onto incorrect research conclusions, or if all else fails, creating a God concept, takes us only so far. We are hitting a wall in quantum physics, religious ideologies, spiritual reckonings, and demands for proof, and disagreements about basic truths. This leaves the world in a sense of frustration and under a veil of fear. Ego demands of intellectual leaders, scientific researchers, and spiritual teachers are not resolving these problems.
No.
Current methods are not working for us anymore. How can we truly identify ourselves, the nature of our personal reality, and our purpose of existence? We can do that by uncovering the source, consciousness. I'm aware that it's really difficult to abandon concepts that we've long believed to be true. Both schools are considering the results of the activity of consciousness before scientifically identifying the source. We're now both currently getting a glimpse of how fundamentally important this identification actually is. How can we teach consciousness if we don't know what it is? How can quantum physics move forward when it observes a force moving a particle by the thoughts of the observer, not knowing how or why this behavior will affect the research at hand? Currently, both science and philosophy are incapable of scientifically defining the part consciousness plays in the origins of our physical reality, the part it plays in modern science, or the part it plays in the purpose of our existence. We need to know why, not just how, the universe was created in the first place. Why is it expanding? Why are we here? What's the point of our existence, or the existence of the universe? How did physical reality begin? Will we exist after death? What is thought, and where does it originate? Identification of consciousness will answer all of these questions.
Attempting to answer this identity problem was the impetus of your book and theory, correct?
Yes, that and the confusion created by this lack of understanding we've been boggled in for millennia. It's exacerbated mistrust in science, our belief systems, and each other. And that mistrust translates globally. The world is now manipulated by fear. Understanding of consciousness is the commonality and truth that we can finally ground ourselves in. There is a creative force in the universe that had a presence at its birth. In an attempt to uncover this, God concepts throughout recorded time have been attached to it, altering its profile from the sun to multiple gods to a single human-like God, gradually morphing over time to suit cultural behaviors, belief systems, and scientific advancement. Each shift added clarity, yet the complexity of consciousness itself is still vague and incomplete. I believe we are approaching a new turning point. We are on the precipice of a new way of thinking. It's time to release ourselves from concepts that don't answer our needs spiritually or scientifically. It's time for a paradigm change in thought, and I believe it will come about through the identification of consciousness. The energy behind this concept is brewing. We know intuitively that the answers are there. It's time to propose some theories. The Berggruen Institute for the Advancement of Philosophical Thought has an introductory statement on their website that rings true to me.
Okay.
Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come.
Okay.
And what could possibly be more universally powerful than the identification of consciousness? I believe its time has finally come.
Okay.
We must examine the nature of this element philosophically and its behavior scientifically to open doors to understanding ourselves and the universe at the same time. The study of consciousness will finally create a bridge between science and philosophy. Nobel Prize winner Sir Roger Penrose and Dr. Stuart Hameroff of the Center for Consciousness Studies at the University of Arizona have agreed that consciousness exists on quantum levels in their scientific evaluations. The acceptance of the presence of consciousness is primary. We should determine now how it is present and why it is present. This study will create avenues for research that could reformat science in general. Is consciousness the force moving particles with thought? Will the study of consciousness unravel the unresolved physics problem of dark matter? This is as much a science problem as it is a philosophical one. Nikola Tesla once said, "The day that science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." Unfortunately, the study of non-physical phenomena presents a difficulty for the scientific community's methodology and its demand for proof. The obvious dynamic nature of the force that they view currently as consciousness prevents isolation and specific research. So theorization, until proven false, will have to suffice. In this venue of non-physical phenomena, traditional methods will have to be relaxed in order for us to move forward. This puts the ball in the court of the philosophers to isolate probabilities. To satisfy this, I, as a philosopher, have created a template to begin structuring it upon. Open to all considerations as we develop satisfactory definition for everyone.
Do you think profiling methods that have already been developed in other fields can be applied here?
Sure. I began by designing this template because I view consciousness as a foundational element or component, like matter and energy, that can definitely be profiled. I see the identity of consciousness as an independent element, and from its origins has been composed of thought. All thought originates in consciousness. It is unique to itself. It's a player from the beginning, together with matter and energy in the origins of the universe. The nature, characteristics, abilities, and needs of the element of consciousness can be understood by studying its behavior, as you would study matter and energy.
So you were postulating that there were 3 foundational elements or what science refers to as components that created the universe, not just two.
Exactly. Yes. In my theory of extension, I explain how in the beginning the thinking element of consciousness purposefully integrated itself into every particle of matter and energy as it was formed. In this way, it created an interdependent relationship between the triad of elemental components. None of these three primary components can create anything without the presence of the other two.
Okay.
Energy alone cannot develop the universe without matter and direction. Consciousness itself cannot create the physical universe without both of the other two. And matter, even with energy, cannot create thought. At the same time, they each have their own identity. They each demonstrate their own characteristics and behavior. Yet each is dependent upon the other two. They are simultaneously singular and together. They create the universe as one, but cannot do that as individual components. They originated the physical universe together and remain together. This great triad is interdependent, yet separate, performing jointly. In my hypothesis, each of what I call the three foundational elements are equally necessary. Without any one of the three would be like trying to teach chemistry without hydrogen on the periodic table.
Okay. Unraveling the threads of what consciousness is quickly becomes a daunting challenge. What inspired you to take this on?
Well, my theory actually began when philosopher David Chalmers called it fundamental and universal. These are identifiers. Good start. Thank you, Dr. Chalmers. But let's not stop there. I believe there's much more.
Okay, so let's start with these two characteristics, fundamental and universal.
Okay. Scientific study has from the beginning focused on matter and energy and has developed the understanding of these two foundational elements to amazing levels. But we can energize matter till the cows come home and they still can't think or create. Consider this simple example. Put a lump of matter, clay, on a potter's wheel. Plug it in, give it some energy, let it spin. Without the creative and manipulative ideas of a consciousness, how long do you think it would take to become a pot? The same premise holds true for the universe as it does for the pot. Logic tells us that an element that had the idea to create and the ability to create a physical universe had to be a participant. Ideas stem from thought, and matter and energy cannot create thought. In this way, all three elements are both fundamental and universal.
Wouldn't the same logical premise hold true for the brain creating thought?
Yes, that's exactly where we are today. Vanguard scientific study is still attempting to determine how the brain creates thought. The study of consciousness has to precede this assumption. I believe that determining how the brain, when considered to be only matter and energy, creates thought is impossible, because as such it can't and it doesn't. Consciousness, the third necessary element, universally present, and its behavior must be considered in this equation. I believe the gap that science is struggling with is the presence of the element of consciousness. I believe that science has overlooked what I'm identifying as the forgotten element, consciousness. The same as matter and energy, it too is a foundational component, only one that can think. Actually, I believe this element is the source of all thought, and as such it underpins everything that exists. By our own definition, to create is to make something from nothing, and that has never been accomplished without consciousness present. Thought comes first in the development of any idea. Thought had to be a participant in the creation of the universe because the universe is not random in our observations. It didn't just magically pop into existence and come together. The universe is organized, evolving, and changing constantly in specific directions, developing according to a mathematical strictness.
Mm-hmm. So where does this element of consciousness come from?
Philosophically speaking, thought is the only thing that can spring into being on its own. So there's yet another avenue for scientific pursuit. However, I have speculated that the origin of consciousness, known completely only to itself, must have evolved just as everything else in the universe has evolved. However, without matter and energy to process its thoughts as we do, we must deduce that the original consciousness must be able to think intuitively on its own. Since consciousness is not physical, the primary form of its existence and all the activity of consciousness is through thought, and it has learned to think very well. The entire construct of consciousness is based on thought. Thought is how it perceives. Thought is the basis of its awareness. Everything it creates happens through thought. What we refer to as our physical reality is the design imagined by the thoughts of the original consciousness, then created and advanced by its thoughts, and we are included in it by its thoughts.
Prior to the development of artificial intelligence, the idea of a thought entity only fell into the category of the unknown, as in God concepts. Are you saying it's similar to that, or to AI?
In this study, I would like to clarify, I am not proposing consciousness to be yet another God concept. I view this as an empirical evaluation of the foundational element, consciousness. Further evaluation will reveal this element to have some characteristics and qualities of previous conceptions, but I view this to be a uniquely new approach. The previous God concepts were actually consciousness misunderstood.
Okay.
Because we ourselves are aware of our own physical existence, we've made the mistake of thinking in old God concepts that the original creative entity is a person type of being and that it is separate from ourselves.
Right.
I believe neither of these is correct. By viewing it in this new paradigm as an element, it will open new philosophical conjectures and scientific possibilities. However, I am saying it may have developed originally in a somewhat similar fashion that AI developed. Future study can shed more light on this. At the moment, we are familiar with artificial intelligence and how it collects information. It's developing fast enough to cause concern for ways to control it.
Yeah.
Over what we would call time, consciousness had to have evolved way past that. Its abilities grew constantly to a point of becoming aware of itself, developing emotions, conscience, an understanding of happiness and fulfillment, and the most direct path to achieve that, to even recognizing its own needs,
Okay.
none of which AI can do yet. But similar to our artificial intelligence, it managed to create goals for itself and develop thought pathways to achieve these goals. And the goals of this thinking element were myriad. One of its specific goals and needs, apparently, was to become more, to learn more, know more, to experience more. The core of its nature is to seek growth. Mm-hmm. Becoming more is what it likes to do best, and it appears to be its primary function.
When did matter and energy become part of this picture? And without physical presence, how does it move physical matter?
Well, at some point, matter and energy were developed as derivatives of consciousness for its own use. This concept was previously proposed by Max Planck. The need to become more inspired the idea behind the development of a physical reality that it could experience. Its universal presence in energy and matter gave it control to design and build whatever it chose with thought. It used its presence in energy to move matter. Because consciousness is present in everything, this action is done cooperatively with matter and energy. Quantum physics is now showing us a force in an atom that can move it in a specific direction according to the thoughts of the observer. I believe that force is consciousness doing what it does best. I postulate in my theory of extension that consciousness extended itself, including all of its nature, abilities, and characteristics, into all atoms of all matter and all energy.
Okay.
Every atom that has this presence of consciousness in it has the potential to evolve as it does, think as it does, and create as it does. And this allows exponential growth for the original consciousness. This makes the expansion of consciousness, then, relative to the expansion of the universe. The entire physical universe was created this way. It is all part of the awareness of consciousness itself, brought into existence through thought for the purpose of its own becoming. So to answer your question more specifically, it is the nature of thought to automatically allow consciousness inspiration and creative abilities. And in order to exercise its creative ability, it chose to integrate itself with everything that exists. It did not just share itself here and there with select parts, but actually extended itself permanently along with all of its own inherent natural characteristics and abilities into every atom of the universe, both of matter and of energy. In this way, we carry all the same characteristics as consciousness itself does, because of all this was extended into every part of us. I use the word extension as it implies that it remains connected. By its simple extension of itself into every particle as it was created, it provided a link to all particles in the universe, to itself, and all particles to each other. It created a highway of thought, so to speak. This link is what entanglement will be explained with. No matter where two particles exist, there is a pathway to get from one to the other. Mm-hmm. By its total presence in every particle that exists, it could control the direction of matter with energy through thought. This concept constitutes the basis of my theory of extension.
So why did it do this?
Well, nothing consciousness does is without reason and purpose. By being a part of all that is, allows consciousness to know its creation, control its creation, manipulate its creation, and experience its creation fully and completely. Consider how DNA is extended into you. By extending all of its identity, everything has the inherent characteristics and abilities and nature it has, and all of it has the ability to evolve. As man eventually evolved to develop the ability to process sensory input in his brain, the presence of consciousness in each cell actuates this information into thought, which becomes his awareness. This gave the original consciousness billions of beings that could share all its individual ideas and unique experiences with it instantly.
It absorbs it all instantly?
Well, what's faster than the speed of light? The speed of thought. That's instantaneous, of course. We are part of the thought network. Consciousness experiences everything you do as you do it, because it is there, extended into you as part of you. It does this through the linked connection that I'm describing in the theory of extension. And you can't put human limitations on it.
Okay.
And because consciousness has freedom of expression, or what you would call free will, this was extended as well. By the theory of extension, we have the freedom to be individual. This amazing idea it came up with allowed each of us to make our own choices, create our own reality, think our own thoughts, build our own memory bank, and experience our physical life in a way unique from all others.
Okay.
By sharing all of this instantly, the need for the original consciousness to become more is fulfilled exponentially. We, too, are in a symbiotic relationship with the original consciousness. We need it, it needs us. It is in us. We are an extension of it. We are its delivery system of the experience of physical reality.
Wow.
In order for it to receive all possibilities of experience from the creation, it devised an even exchange. We receive individuality from it, and it receives physical experience from us.
What is the differentiation between using this concept and using the current materialist concept?
The materialist concept is that we are basically physical beings in a closed system, using thought as a tool to experience our reality. In truth, it appears to be the exact opposite. We are actually thought beings in an open system, using our physical bodies as a tool to experience our reality. just like consciousness does.
Okay.
Yes, this genius idea of extending itself allows each individual part of creation to be united yet separate, to experience physical existence in its own way, and simultaneously transfer by its connectedness everything back to the original, so it simultaneously experiences it as well. So here's your takeaway. The whole reason for the physical universe to exist is this. By the theory of extension I describe here, the thought element of consciousness is allowed the opportunity to experience all of physical reality without being physical itself.
Wow. Thank you.